Are you looking to start your own business and you don't know where to start? This is the episode for you. My name is Diana Lizarazo, and my co host is Matt Goddard. And today's topic, we will be talking about planning and structure. We will be discussing also marketing and communications and the product, the services, going into those details. Matt, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to get into these building blocks of what it is to run a business.
100%. Yeah. And before we get started, do you just want to share with the viewers a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Matthew. I'm an entrepreneur. I have worked. I've started businesses in real estate and renovations and other things. I work as a consultant, and I live and breathe business for whatever that means.
I hear you. It's funny when you start in running businesses or running your first, I would say, and then it's not one thing, right? And you just start getting into many different things or really starting to enjoy what you like. I mean, it's the same for me, right? It's like I started actually in starting up a renovation business, then going into real estate and being an investor. And now I feel like I'm going into what I used to do in my job, is like building applications and getting into like the techie side, and then learning some stuff more into the AI, like learning about AI. So it is. I feel like now I feel like I used to define as I'm a real estate investor. I'm like, nah, I'm an entrepreneur because it's just like you see an opportunity, something interests you, you want to get involved in. It's just, you know, we are entrepreneurs. We're
A
always there
hundred,
to like solve a problem, I
a
feel
hundred percent.
like.
I'm someone who enjoys business and I'm endlessly curious. I think
Mhm.
that's the best way to describe it. So,
Love it. So let's start with the first topic. So we are discussing planning and structuring that business, your first business, which I think this is a great topic because I feel like people will hit very many different spectrums. You'll do no planning to way overdoing it and planning way too much. And I think this is such an important topic because you do want to have that planning and structure in place, but it
mhm.
has to be open enough to be evolve and adapt and change and also not stress you out because
Yeah,
you overdid it and then you get pissed off because you're not going to plan. So it needs to be open. What are your views?
yeah. I mean, when we're kind of discussing what we think some of these building blocks are, one of the things we use to kind of, in my mind, the way I envision structure and planning is kind of the skeleton of your business. Um, and skeletons aren't rigid things. Elements of the skeleton maybe are. Your bones don't bend, but the skeleton as a whole is a flexible thing. And so does your business. So does the planning or the processes or the systems that you use.
Mhm.
Um,
And I like
because
that
things
word
change.
actually of using a
So yeah,
skeleton because it's not the full thing, it's not the full body, but it's enough that you start seeing a shape basically be created
yeah,
from that.
yeah. It's kind of in my mind, it's sort of the the how, maybe the how of of what's going on. Um, you know, uh, the type of business you. So in here, we're talking about what type of business you are. Are you a corporation, maybe a partnership? Um, what divisions do you have? Do you have multiple divisions or like product lines or multiple services? Um, these kind of things.
Yeah, the roles and responsibilities. And I think that's even
Yeah.
something that I feel like I learned. Um, again, going into, I feel like I go way too detailed before. Now I feel like been in it so long, you start learning it, and by experience, you start learning what is too much and what's not, and where you're trying to waste time because maybe you're scared of another area of the business because that's like where your strength is not, and you're kind of avoid it, you know. So sometimes you go like deep into like what you're good at, and I feel like, for example,
Yeah.
me structure and planning, I'm like, that is definitely something that I love to do and it comes easy to me. But then learning how much is enough, and that was something I felt like in one of my businesses that I really learned well, was that we had our high level roles and I didn't want to go into detail because as we went through the business and ran, and basically this one was a flip, we were flipping
Mm.
houses, and as we went through it, I I noticed like it was very interesting, you know, when problems come up, as you start really seeing where people's skills come in, and
Yeah.
that was something where I'm glad we never defined, you know, like who does, let's say, the problem resolution type thing. But one of the big things at the beginning were like where are our strengths and making sure they're at least diverse enough
Yeah.
that we know like who should be jumping in first, right? Or
Yeah.
I mean, then you start not who will, but you kind of start getting ideas. Okay, this person's probably going to do this at this point or do this at this point. But then until like problems start coming up, do you really start seeing how people behave, right? And then I feel like
Yeah.
that's where I felt like by the end of our first flip is actually where we really realized, okay, you're like the roles were defined by the end of the flip fully, like more where I was like, okay, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, you know, like yes, I get where all your experience lies and what you feel comfortable with and like that how you can handle a problem. Because some people also
Yeah.
handle problems and you're like, okay, we're gonna leave you
Well,
out
that's yeah.
of it.
Yeah. And I think that's you're hitting on a good point. Like I would say for most businesses, for most people that are starting something, um, especially if it's the first time, if the first time you've done this kind of business or the first time you've done any business maybe, or like worked on a team or something like this, in this capacity, you don't really know, or you may not know where you're strong, at and where you're weak. And so there may be some of the structure and planning isn't necessarily, okay, I'm going to spend the next 3 months sitting at my kitchen table with my three best friends, and we're going to have our pencil and paper, and we are going to, you know, write out, draw, illustrate like the perfect structure and skeleton for our business. And I'll know every task that you do, and you know every task that I do. Not maybe it's that. Maybe it's that for some people.
I
But
don't
I
think it
feel
would be
most
like
of the time
that.
it's
When
not.
you're
I feel most
starting,
of the
you
time
have
it's
no
like,
idea.
yeah, I feel like most of the time there's an element of, okay, I might know what some of my strong suits are, but there's a good chunk of this business and activity that we may start approaching as a team, and then we'll kind of suss out maybe who's best suited for what.
Yeah.
And then and that's kind of that structure and planning. Like
Yeah.
it's a bit of a fluid thing, right?
Yeah. And just exactly what kind of you were saying is because we had a situation where because I guess in corporate world I was managing teams, so I got used to that, being able to resolve issues in the communication part when it came to the issue area. And so I just automatically assumed that I would probably be doing that, especially because I had the most experience on the real estate side. I expected that I'd probably be the one doing most of that type of like, I'll be the resolution person. Problem comes up, I'm there and I'm either talking to neighbors or whatever. Because
Yeah.
that's generally in other projects is I am that. I'm always that one that two levels of degree of separation to a project. And I come in when the problem can't be resolved remotely, kind of a thing. And it was
Yeah.
really funny because in this project, we had another guy very good at communications, but not in real estate, but he wanted to be involved in it. So he was involved in the project. And and it was funny because he just was like quick to go. Same thing, very good at resolution management. And I was like, okay, I was like, you're very good at this. And I was just like, yeah, step back. Okay. Like he's really good at this,
Yeah.
making people feel good. I'm like, I didn't even need to get involved. And also, I mean, he just went quickly. I mean, those are all the times you see like who are the quick action takers, right? And he's just like, oh, I'm gonna take care of this. Like this happened and I'm gonna take care of it. I was like, okay, and then it went well. And I was like, okay, you are good at this. This is your expertise. And it was something that I can't say that I knew if he was or not good at problem solving
Yeah.
type of issues, right? And this was a good demonstration. I was like, oh, this is your thing. Like, you're good at this. Perfect. I can focus my energy somewhere else. Because there was also something
Yeah.
like, yes, I'm good at it, but it was something that I had learned and just taken as something that I do just because maybe the need was there and I had to take care of that
Yeah.
need. Where in this case, I was like, oh, you got it. You're good. You
You're
take care of
nailing it.
the
I
problem.
I think that's like a good example of just kind of like, well, some effective delegating, right? And like you're kind of saying like it takes a little bit of trust to give people responsibilities. You're
Mhm.
like, okay, I could tell I'm sussing out that maybe you're good at this. Uh, okay, I'm gonna trust you to do this. I'm gonna effectively delegate these tasks or this role to you.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and that's important. That's
And that's
important. Like
great.
when I said before, I kind of want to almost correct myself because or clarify because before I was saying like, you know, sometimes it's a very fluid. This is a fluid structure or something like this, but that doesn't mean that it's not defined,
Mhm.
right? Like I think the importance is that there is structure. It might be a little fluid. It might be flexible. Maybe
Yes.
flexible is a better word. It might be flexible, but there is structure. Because if there isn't any kind of, even if the defined element is we are all going to do this task together as a group, or we're going to all share this particular responsibility, well, that's defined, you know?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
it doesn't necessarily need to be like, okay, every single day you spend 30 minutes doing this one task, 10 minutes doing this task, 5 minutes doing this task, 30 minutes doing it. Like it doesn't need to be that defined, but
Mhm.
it does need to be defined.
Yeah, 100%. It does. There needs to be a level of defining of a high level of the roles. But like that, you notice,
Yeah.
I mean, especially when you're starting off, I feel that you become, or you should be, very adaptable, right? Because there may be certain things even in that role that person isn't good at, but you are. And you got to like
Mhm.
jump in and quickly go in and
Yeah.
vice versa, right? Because again, like a role is very high level, and sometimes you realize you may not satisfy all those things that what could probably be in the role, but someone else does. And so
Yeah.
that adaptability becomes very important. Or like I always love kind of sitting back and seeing the team work because you all of a sudden just see like, oh, this is a strength that he has that maybe it doesn't really fully apply to his role. But to me, I'd be like, but you should do it for this
Yeah.
because it's so important and you're good at it, And so
Yeah.
even like that, like it's just like the high level roles are good, but you'll just see like you start seeing things morph, and it's going to, especially because it's the start of a business and you're learning so much and seeing how to do things
Well,
that.
yeah. And I think the importance in it is that there's many important aspects to having something that like having some structure and having some defined processes and systems and defined roles and responsibilities. Uh, One of the ones that stands out to me is like sort of confidence and authority, right? Like if something's defined, like if you've defined or delegated a process, a responsibility to somebody else, then you're able to be like if you trust them, if you're confident in them, like you're able to kind of offload that from your side, guys, be confident that something's happening over here and maybe focus on what it is that you're supposed to be focusing on,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it gives confidence for those individuals that, you know, they have some authority, some autonomy to actually take actions and move things forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you haven't kind of defined the process or the system, you haven't defined the responsibility, then in at least some capacity, what you're just hiring someone saying, go like make my house, thank you. Like that's not enough information. Like what's that person going to do? You're not going to get to the goal. And I think part of that comes to the other side of structure and planning, which is the goal setting, the planning part, right? How are
Yes.
you going to reach those goals? How are you going to be able to make effective plans? Like you've gotten into business for a reason, so you at least have some sort of vision, some sort of plan, something.
Yeah.
Um, and how are you going to actually take action on that plan
Yeah.
if you don't have some structure, some processes? You haven't empowered either yourself or your team or your maybe they're just like subcontractors or other like people. Like maybe you're not a team right then. Maybe you're just a one guy like shop, you know? But you haven't like delegated some processes to maybe a bookkeeper or an accountant, like subcontractors. Like it's all part of the skeleton of the business, the foundation, the skeleton to move it forward, to move the idea forward.
Yeah. And that's a good point actually, because I guess we should talk about some people do work in teams and others are individual. And something that I started adopting specifically in this business a lot from the things that I've learned, and I think is actually again a way to help those people that want to control or way too detail oriented to kind of soothe uh, is you have like your big goal, you'll have like your 1 year goal, which is I think basically you're saying it's like important to define that. And then you
Yeah.
have like your milestone goal. Like let's say for in my case, just to give them, for example, like an MVP. So it'd be my minimum viable product that I want to set
Yeah.
out within whatever my time frame is. But now it's not, but from there, now my tasks are really only within, I would say, 3 days to the week defined. And the reason
Hmm.
it's, at least in this kind of business, the reason I'm only really planning out a week in advance is because how much things are changing, to be honest. And when
Yeah.
I make certain decisions, for example, like my MVP has changed like literally 20 times,
Yeah.
like, or the thought and design of it, not that like it's still in the building process, but because I keep on thinking like, okay, we need to get to market sooner. We need to get market sooner. And then so I'm like, okay, what features can I take out? For example, like how can I make this so that we can get there sooner? And so
Hmm.
things will change. And I feel like if you're only planning for the week or the next few days, I feel again that stress of like, oh my God, I did this. I planned like the whole 3 months of this and now I'm scrapping it all because we're changing. It
Yeah.
doesn't, I feel like it won't feel so daunting or so annoying
Well,
or so frustrating.
yeah.
It's not such a huge change. Like your milestone is still there. For example, mine, like there's still an MVP. It's just that MVP is evolving and there's still
Yeah.
my 1 year goal, but I haven't done all this information, like put all this effort in and got frustrated because it's like, man, I put all this energy into this plan and it's like changed again.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's almost a necessity, right? Especially if your business in whatever, however you might want to look at it, and I feel like most businesses are this, is about, building something, learning something, discovering something,
Mhm.
uh, growing something. Like if it, I'm not sure what kind of business might not kind of fall under this, where what the business is gonna look like in January is probably different, or what it's going to look like slash doing is going to be different than in maybe February, maybe in March, maybe in
Yeah.
like and and so as you get more information, as you learn more things, as as there's more input for your decision making, things
Mhm.
ought to change. Um, and that's I think part of being you're having a structure that's flexible and communicating that to people, right? Like communicating that to your team. Like it's okay if like, we had this 3 month goal, we had this, um, if things are, information's coming to light that's not attainable or we have to change something, like that's okay.
Mhm. I think, and that's a great lead into
Or
the next
yeah,
point of marketing and communications, because like you said, not only you want to communicate those points to your team of just the higher level plan is so important, then, communication in the marketing sense, in the PR sense, like in the team sense, like it becomes even more important because, and that's actually something I've noticed that I've been better at communications actually now in this startup because um, I've just noticed things are actually evolving better because I realized that they have a better vision because I wrote things down of like that, like
yeah,
the vision, the goals. And we've even gone into, I mean, in the marketing sense, not talking about marketing, like we have a brand identity. And I didn't
yeah,
realize how important actually that brand identity is because now my marketing team really is getting good at because now they have these guidelines like, okay, I need to meet this when I
yeah.
create a post. Whereas before
It
I
gives
never
you something
had
to fall
that.
back on.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I never had that. Like even the verbiage is defined. Like it was very interesting to get this brand identity created because I felt that, and it got shared actually between a lot of different, not just marketing. It got shared actually because I just felt like this defined a lot on the business that helped
hmm
people just get that better idea of what it is that we're really building. And I just noticed it gave more clarity, which was very surprising. I didn't
it
expect it actually to happen.
yeah, yeah. It's funny. The last two businesses I did, I so one was my property management company, the other one's the consulting that I'm doing now. Um, I had this thought, this whatever, this vision of what I wanted to do, and I enjoy design, I enjoy whatever, like it's I've noticed especially for those last two businesses I've created, that was almost one of the first things I did. I'm like, okay, what is this? What is this vision? Uh, what's the brand identity? Like, what's the kind of the purpose? Like, there's the structure and how we're going to do things and that, but it's what's the vibe here? Like, I have all these thoughts and this plan in my head, but how am I communicating that to the world? What do I want it to look like? What do I want it to uh, feel like? Like, it kind of goes a long way. And if you're able to kind of, I mean, it's not the end all be all,
And it
um,
can evolve.
but if you're able to, and it can evolve, but if you have at least a little bit of a foundation of, yeah, like, for my consulting, for example, it's our logo is a tree because it's about growth. It's business consulting, so it's about growth and it's about uh, you know, having strong roots and this kind of thing. And the color palette's nice and warm. And just like it- part of it's about what I feel like I can share, and so a bit of it's reflecting my preferences. But like
Mhm.
that's what I want to, I want to be at service to people through my consulting. So like that's the foundation of the branding, the marketing. Like it's kind of there.
And
But it
even
took me a while. I spent a lot of time staring at
and it evolves.
Googling through color palettes, Googling like it took a while.
Yeah, and it even evolves. Actually, I feel like sometimes you
Yeah.
feel like after some time, I know this happened to me. After some time, you're like, I don't know. Actually, these colors, I don't feel like the right colors. And I did a full color change on
hmm
on my social media for my specific account. And sometimes, but the thing is, once you start with something, the one good thing with that is like having these definitions out there of, let's say, like that, your purpose, and then let's say in the marketing sense, some level of
Yeah,
brand identity. Again, I say don't go too detailed, because you define these things, and as you're putting this out, you start seeing their responses. And actually, this happened to me in this business. I started putting it out there. I'm like, okay, this is what
mhm,
this means, this is what this is, to my teams. And my
yeah,
team were like questioning it. And it was very interesting to hear them question it, because I was like, oh, I didn't convey it properly. And then we would change
yeah,
it, because I was like, no, no, that's not what I meant. I'm like, that's what it wrote. And then it would evolve and change even within the
yeah,
team. Because I was like, oh, you're seeing it in this way. Okay, how do I make you see it this way? And then like that.
yeah,
So you go from that level of internal, even maybe sharing it friends with family. Like I did that where I was like, here, what do you think of this? Because they kind of
yeah,
how they see it, and you're like, is that how I want to be seen?
yeah.
Is that what I was trying to say? Yes
I
or
s-
no, right?
yeah. Yeah, I honestly I did the same thing. So like I did like little one pagers, you know. I had these sort of like three sort of like brand vibe one pagers. I came up with these three separate logos, like whatever. I was having some fun with it. And there was one that I started with that I was like, it's probably going to be this, which was it had an animal in it. And then there was, you know, an in between, and then the one I kind of settled on. And thanks, you know, in the business I'm in, I have some, let's say, colleagues that are marketing consultants and stuff. And, you know, conveniently, we happen to have like a weekly or bi-weekly meeting where we just kind of shoot the shit. And so, you know, I bounced off them, but also I ended up going to my mother when I was visiting one time, being like, "Hey, I brought over these things. I know, like, you know, you might not really have like, you know, uh, too much of an opinion
Mhm.
like on logos for a business concept or something.
Yeah.
But like, hey, like, and I
Oh,
went to like, I ended up at like it was like a family meetup. I was like, what do you think of these three? Which one do you like? Go to my sister. What do you think about like these three? Like, just I have a preference, but which one's your preference and why? Just to like get like as much of a third party like
I was gonna say that
some
outsider view is
feedback.
good, right? Because
Yeah,
you're an outsider and you're just like, what does this look like to you? Like,
yeah,
what does it look like I'm selling? What does it look like I'm saying?
yeah.
Like,
Well,
does it sound
it was
rude?
funny. The one
Like,
that I
get
went in,
everything.
yeah, the one that I went in thinking was like, yeah, this is really gonna communicate like the vibe I want, communicate my story and have the right meaning to it, this logo and this branding and all of that. You know, I showed it to them and it was like a deer in front of a tree, and they're like, that looks like there's like a deer that has like a broccoli afro. I'm like, you're right. I guess that one's out. Like I got so into the weeds, I didn't even think about it. I'm like, yeah, it looks like there's like this deer has like a broccoli head.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
And that's the funny thing,
next.
because you're in it, you like
Yeah,
one part, or you get so focused on one part that you do kind of blank out the rest. And sometimes those fresh eyes make you see things. Because same thing, like also, yeah, you send something to someone and they say something, you're just like, oh my God, that does say that, or it does do that. Let me change that up a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah.
Because you may be stuck on, like, I may get stuck on like this word or this specific thing and completely forget about the other stuff, and then they see that other stuff and they're like, it's not meshing well together or something, like something, they'll just be like, oh,
Well,
this is
and I
how I
think
see this.
exactly, exactly. And I think it's like, that's the important thing about your marketing and communication is that it's how you're telling your story. And yes, there's you telling the story, but then there's also the person that's like receiving that from you, right? It's not just like a one-way like interaction. Like, so I think it's important to give it maybe some extra consideration, uh, have some extra input so that you are actually communicating with your potential customers or even internally what you think you're communicating. I'm communicating consulting established, not broccoli head deer.
Yeah.
right? Um, which was how it could have been. So, um, and I think that's why it's so important because it's not just what you're saying. There's people receiving it, and you want to make sure that the people are hearing correctly what you're trying to communicate to them.
100%. And because there's
Because what you're trying to communicate
people,
is, pardon me?
because there's
So,
also many different types of people too. So
exactly.
sometimes like I see it in a certain way. For example, like in AI, this is something that someone made me realize. For example, we do not use the word AI in any of our things because people still have those negative connotations to AI. And to make sure we keep it positive, we don't say anything AI, we just say advanced technology, you know? And it was because someone was just like, oh my God, that sounds like scammy, or that sounds um,
Right.
like threatening, it's too new, to whatever. Like there's all he's saying, and I was just like, oh my God, I never thought of it because I'm so embedded in AI right now.
Yeah.
To me, like the word AI is like so
And
normal to me.
and for your consumer or your potential customer, does that does AI really communicate the important aspects of your product?
What you're actually
Maybe, maybe
solving.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the problem you're solving, like what it's do, like yes, it's communicating, like I guess what it a certain aspect of it, but is it
And do
that
they even
important?
care,
And
to
if
be
it,
honest?
yeah, and is it communicating it the way? Yeah, exactly. And is it communicating it the way
Like they
you?
don't care it's AI. They're just like, are you solving my problem? Yes or
Yeah,
no? That's all I care about.
they're like,
How
but
you do
AI,
it
it's
doesn't matter.
like large large language models, like it's all this cool advanced thing. This is why it's so good. And they're like, cool. Um, if the calculator could fix my problems, I'm going to use the calculator. Like they
Yeah.
don't care. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It could be AI doing the math for me. It could be the calculator doing the math. It could be an abacus. Is
Mhm.
it getting the job done? Like, is that the point? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Um,
what is the problem you're solving? And it's like you're really only speaking about that. And it's rare that people want to go, looking deeper. And then if there is, then you have that information there if it's needed. But but yeah, so it's like all these little things that when you talk to different people, the importance of speaking to many different types of people, because they'll like let's say in my case, the non-technical people, or even in any
mhm.
field, right? Like the people that are not in your area, but they may be your clients, you want to know what it is
Yeah,
that they're seeing and understanding. And because again, like I feel like when you're in that world, you get so embedded in it that sometimes you maybe even forget that this is not normal, and not everyone
yeah.
knows what's going on in
Well,
that
and I think it's easy to forget that like you don't know your customer
world.
per se, and they don't know you. Like in the sense that um if you're trying to communicate this vision that's in your head, you've done all this planning, you've created the structure, you've come up with a brand, and you're trying to communicate what your product, your services, like all this. Um, that's great, but I don't necessarily know you unless you've and I don't trust you unless you've communicated it correctly. Like
Exactly.
I go to Walmart or I go to McDonald's, let's say, because I trust that the burger I'm going to get there is going to taste a certain way. It's going to be, may not be the best burger for me, but I trust that it's going to be whatever my brain wants at the moment, you know?
Mhm.
Um, I'm doing consulting, or I have a real estate project. You're doing your 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 AI program. Like a random person off the street isn't going to know who I am and isn't going to listen to what I have to say unless I've communicated properly. Because I don't listen to random people necessarily
Yeah. Like you
trying
have
to
to
sell me
capture,
something off the street, you
yeah.
know?
Like you have to capture their attention. Like basically like that. Like if
Yeah.
someone says, if you say like, "Oh my God, I know how to solve your stress problems." Oh my God, I feel stressed right now. Tell me more. Like,
Yeah,
like that
yeah,
problem becomes so important. Like, what are you solving? And then you're going for those people that need that problem solved. And then, like you said, and I mean, and continued communication. Like, I mean, everything is communication.
yeah.
But then
Like
that
there's good communication and successful communication. There's bad communication and detrimental communication. And then you have like no communication, which I would argue no communication just falls in the bucket of bad or detrimental communication
because imagine
because
you have the most amazing product, but no one
zero
knows
is nothing.
about it,
Yeah,
or you don't know how
yeah,
to sell it. I know someone
yeah,
that's going through that right now. They have a really good product, but like there's no promotion about
yeah.
them. They're
If
not
you
very
can
well
think of
known.
communication on sort of a meter, right? Like the more positive you go, the more growth you get potentially, all of this kind of stuff. The more negative you go on this meter, this communication meter, you're going to lose sales. You might lose money. You might lose customers. But zero is also nothing. Like zero is just there's
I mean, everything tells you
there's no
something. And
customers.
you have to be in analysis mode all the time, right? Like
Yeah,
everything tells you something. And even I would say that analyzing everything you do and not getting offended, like letting that ego go is very important because, man, it's
mhm,
everyone's gonna have an opinion, and you have to have it with open ears to be like, okay, what is the problem that they're seeing that I need to fix?
yeah,
Because clearly I have either not communicated properly, presented it properly, or it's not clear in a business plan or in a
yeah,
business sense, like the structure is not there. So it's just like that
mhm,
openness also is so important to not get discouraged and be like, oh my God, they hate it and you're done and never happen again. Like you also have to have that mentality of, okay, that asking the next question, oh, you see it this way. What made you see it that way? How does this bother you? Or like just getting into that curiosity mode of,
mhm,
okay, this didn't work for you and you don't like it. What happened? What did I do wrong? And like how do I evolve? And that's why, like I said, like my MVP has evolved like quite a bit because there's so many variables that come in. And if I were a person that was like, oh, you didn't like it, that's a bad idea, and I stopped, like I would never get
yeah,
anywhere with it. So you have to be
yeah,
also that openness.
yeah. And I think like you have to be right. Um, One of the things that we haven't really touched on much is this, like, there's the building blocks of business is what we're talking about. We have structure, we have communication. There's there's the actual like, what's the value prop? Like, what's the actual thing? Like, what's the purpose? What's the product, the service, the purpose, whatever you want to call it. There's a reason we're here. Um, and that's kind of the next thing. And you have to be able to define that um, and be critical that you are actually like providing service, providing there's a value exchange there. You have to be flexible that if you recognize there is not a value exchange,
Hmm.
like can I create a value exchange? You
Hmm.
know, um,
Yeah, and knowing
I think
is
that's
there
equally
a
as
market
important.
out for that, and
Yeah,
again,
yeah,
basically what I was saying, like, okay, is there a market for it? And you have to start with the beginning, like, okay, it's going to do this, and you have that basic idea, but then you send it
yeah.
out to the market, and you're like, do you actually want? And I'm not even saying
What's
like
the feedback?
product, like an idea, like
Yeah.
I want to build this. You send it out kind of to the people, and then they tell you, like that's what's happened to me, and all of a sudden it's evolved and changed, and other factors like that. I'm trying to get it out to market faster, so that's also changed it. But also
Mhm.
ideas have changed just because people tell me things, and I'm just like, oh, okay, you know what? Again, I'm thinking only in my point of view. When you build something, a product, a service, you only think in your point of view. And once you send out ideas, especially talking to different people, I feel like that really helps to fill in the gaps and the holes to that product because at least that's happened to me where I'm like, oh, I'm building this, and then people will tell me other things or they tell me what they don't like or what the problem with it, which I may have not thought of, but clearly they have because they've had that issue.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh, just don't do it this way because I hate that this, and this. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's true. But I've never experienced that problem. So I never thought about it. But others have. And I was like, you know what? You're right. That is something I also, if it ever happened to me, I would not like that to happen to me. And like, I need to put it in.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I agree. And it's about, I guess, being flexible, but it is something that you have to deal with. Like if you don't have something defined, if you haven't accepted, I mean, maybe you have it defined, but if it's not realistic, like if the value exchange hasn't been, the value proposition hasn't been like defined, then
I mean, again, you'll see it. If you're out there,
what are we doing?
yeah,
You'll find out. You'll find out. But you know, um, yeah, and there is a point at which you may have these three sort of pillars, these three building blocks, kind of fleshed out, or you've been working on them. You have a structure, you have communication, or and you have this value exchange, this product, this service,
mhm.
this purpose. Um, okay, at what point are we done maybe talking theoretical or done analyzing? Like there's there is a point where we have defined that we've done this work and now what, right? We figured out what we need to figure out and what's the next step. And I think that's one of the hardest steps that people have. Um, you
And the
have this great
scariest,
idea,
I feel like the scariest step
Pardon?
too.
And the scariest step because I mean, maybe you've put some money into some of like to building a marketing plan and some communication. Maybe you put some money into building out a structure or systems and processes, and maybe you've already bought stuff, and maybe you've already done market research, or maybe like you've defined what this value exchange is. So it's not like you haven't done anything, but like we're like, cool. We've come up with the idea. We've come up with the plan. Now, are we are we business? Are we taking the next step? Are we is this viable?
Mhm.
I think
Yeah. And I think to be
is
honest, I
what
think at
is
that point,
difficult.
I feel that technically, at least in my view, is probably you shouldn't have started spending money yet. Because, like you said, you're doing the analysis, like you're trying to figure out
Yes.
what is the product. You're
Yeah.
kind of putting it out there, and basically, I feel like what you're getting to is what our next episode will be. Is that after that, like once we've done all this, we're doing the feelers out, we're deciding like what our product or service is going to be. We've done some level of planning, like you said, in the marketing communications and about planning and structure, just a higher level business structure. But then it's like
Yeah.
making sure we do not get stuck there. And the because the fear
Yeah.
usually is like now you need to take action. Now you got to actually start doing things
Yeah.
and finding
Yeah.
that balance between building, starting, and making sure you're taking action. So in our next episode,
Yeah. Like from going from theoretical to practical
practical,
or
yeah, like you need
yeah,
to start getting those
reality.
theories out. Like, is what I'm building make sense? Or even
Yeah.
like my ideas, do they make sense? Is it illogical or do I need to put more detail into it? Like, so it's like that. So the next episode is to be basically um, how to make sure you're not letting fears get the hold of you. Because I feel like when you do analysis, fears get a hold of you.
Yeah.
So it's like letting yourself, okay, you've got to take those actions. You're going to be doing things that you've probably never done before. Now it's like next episode will be basically how do we manage these fears
Yeah,
and how do we
but
take action and keep moving.
talking about that threshold,
Yeah,
right? Talking about that threshold between we have this theoretical business,
yeah.
do we have this real business?
Mm-hmm.
I think is what we're going to talk about because it's difficult,
A lot of people
scary,
get stuck there. A lot of people
but
have
it's exciting.
yeah, a lot of people have ideas, but the fears start coming in. It's like, so next episode is let's take the actions and how are you guys going to take actions and what can we do? Some strategies around that to make sure you're always moving forward and not getting stuck in one area, basically.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
Awesome. Any final comments that you want to share before we go?
Oh, oh, I don't think so. I think at the end of the day, I don't think so. And then I go on a monologue. Um, but, I don't think so. And let me tell you, uh, no, I think it's just you can be theoretical for so long,
Hmm.
and then we got to jump into reality and make something happen because there's an idea in our heads as entrepreneurs, and I feel like the goal at the highest of levels is to take that idea and make it reality.
Hmm.
So
Agree. And the importance of
talk
like
about some of
that
these,
pillars, right?
yeah,
Like three pillars are, I don't know if you guys could tell, but they were so intertwined, right? Like as we spoke, they really intertwined
yeah,
together. They're very pivotal. You have to have all these three like that, a very startup, so like some level of definition there, but they intertwine and they are so important.
absolutely, absolutely.
Awesome.
So apart from that, that's all I got.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Matt. Like always, let us know in the comments if you agree with our three pillars, if you have other things that you find important, or even just your learning experiences, what you've learned along the way, if you are already starting your business, have already started, and what kind of things are coming up with you. Even any questions, maybe we can answer them in the next coming episodes too. Matt, thank you so much. It's so fun to chat with you.
Absolutely. Thanks for the conversation.
We'll see everyone
Have
in the next episode. Bye, Matt. Bye, everyone.